I walked in with a birthday cake and found them tangled in each other. My sister, my fiancé, in my bed. That was the moment I died, and the woman they knew, she never came back. Welcome to subscribe if betrayal stories give you chills, because this one ends with a public humiliation they'll never forget. I never thought betrayal could come wrapped in a ribbon. But it did, on my 27th birthday. A day that was supposed to be filled with love, laughter, and celebration turned into a living nightmare. I had spent the entire morning preparing balloons, flowers, even a custom cake that read, "To us, forever." Forever. What a joke. I'd left work early, excited to surprise Ethan, my fiancé of 2 years. We'd been together since college, and despite our ups and downs, I believed we were solid. I trusted him like I trusted the ground beneath me. And my sister, Tessa, my own blood, she was my best friend, my bridesmaid, my safe place when the world felt heavy. So when I walked into our apartment with the cake in hand, heart thumping with joy, I never imagined I'd hear moaning from the bedroom. At first, I froze. My mind tried to justify it. TV? Maybe he was watching something. But the second I stepped closer and heard her laugh, that unmistakable giggle that Tessa had since childhood, my soul shattered. I kicked the door open, and there they were, skin to skin. No shame, no guilt, just shock. Ethan jumped up like a coward caught in a trap, and Tessa? She didn't even cover herself. She smirked, as if I was the intruder, as if this wasn't my life crumbling into ash in front of me. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just dropped the cake. It hit the floor with a dull thud, the words, "To us, forever," now smashed under their betrayal. I walked out without a word, my hands shaking, heart racing, but my mind? Clear, strangely clear. That night, I didn't call anyone. Not my mom, not my friends, not even Tessa, though my phone blew up with her messages. I didn't mean for this to happen. It just did. She was always good at making excuses. I, on the other hand, was good at staying calm and planning. The next morning, I stared at myself in the mirror. I expected to see a broken woman, red eyes, messy hair, and regret. But what I saw instead was fire. A cold, burning fire that wanted justice. Not just emotional closure. No, I wanted them to feel what I felt. Publicly. Humiliation. Disgrace. Shame. And I knew exactly where to start. You see, Ethan was a rising star in a local architecture firm, recently featured in a business magazine. Reputation meant everything to him. Tessa? She was an aspiring influencer, trying to land brand deals, sponsorships, all while posting sister goals content with me for fake engagement. I had receipts, photos, videos, messages, years of them. Every fake smile, every suspicious moment. I'd ignored them before, but now they were fuel. So I created a new Instagram account, anonymous. I uploaded everything, titled it Behind the Smiles, The Real Ethan and Tessa. But this was only phase 1. I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to make them beg for forgiveness in front of the same audience they used to build their lives. The Instagram page didn't take long to catch fire. Within 48 hours, it had over 30,000 followers. People couldn't get enough of the screenshots. Ethan's messages where he sweet-talked me in one thread and Tessa in the next. The video clips were worse. Him stroking her hair while lying in the same bed we shared. Her filming him sleeping shirtless in my apartment with a caption, "I wish this moment could last forever, kissy face." The comments were brutal. "This is sick. Your own sister?" "Girl, drop their names. Expose them fully." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself, and people were hungry for more. But I didn't stop at Instagram. I knew Ethan had a company gala coming up. a black tie event celebrating the launch of $1 million architectural project. He was to be honored with a plaque, a press photo, and media coverage. It was his moment, his big night. Perfect. So I reached out to an old college friend, Hannah, now a freelance journalist with a local scoop blog. I told her everything, showed her everything. Her eyes widened not just at the betrayal, but at the story. "Do I have your permission to run this publicly?" she asked. I didn't blink. "Yes, just don't use my name. Yet." We drafted a piece titled, "Sleeping with Success: How a Rising Architect Built His Career While Tearing Down a Family." It was poetic, precise, vicious in the most factual way. We linked the anonymous Instagram page, included blurred screenshots. The post went live the morning of the gala. And Ethan? He had no clue. Meanwhile, Tessa was unraveling. She called me over a dozen times, left voicemails full of sobbing, claiming it was a mistake, that she loved me, that Ethan was manipulative. But the truth is, she enjoyed it, until the spotlight turned ugly. Her followers tanked, sponsors dropped her, and one beauty brand publicly commented under her latest reel, "We do not support influencers who violate basic human decency. Contract terminated." I could have ended it there, but that would be too easy. I wanted everyone in their circles to know, not just social media strangers, their friends, colleagues, bosses. So I emailed Ethan's firm. A subject line: Your keynote speaker might be a family ruiner." Attached were photos, dates, voicemails, screenshots. Hours later, I got a response from HR. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Please note that this will be escalated internally." I smiled. It had begun, but the final blow, oh, that would happen tonight, at the gala. In front of everyone who thought Ethan was the picture-perfect rising star. He was expecting a tribute. He had no idea I'd prepared a different presentation, one that would play across the projector, replacing his promo video with a timeline of betrayal, audio clips, and a final message. Some men design buildings, others destroy homes. He didn't know yet, but tonight would be the night he became the project under demolition. The hotel ballroom was glowing, chandeliers hanging like frozen stars, champagne flowing, and a string quartet humming in the background. Everyone dressed in black and gold, the colors of elegance and success. This was his night. Ethan's name was printed in gold foil on the event program, Visionary of the Year. I stood near the back in a deep burgundy dress, one that clung to me like confidence. No one recognized me, not with my new haircut, my sharper eyes, and a different last name on the RSVP. I had booked a seat as Emma Quinn. No one questioned it. I blended in like smoke before a fire. Ethan stood on stage with that stupid smirk I used to find charming. He laughed with colleagues, shook hands with sponsors, posed for photographers like nothing in his world could collapse. My stomach twisted with the memory of how many times I believed in this man, how many sacrifices I'd made to support his dream, and how easily he exchanged my love for lust. The MC cleared his throat and stepped up. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we welcome Mr. Ethan Clark to accept his award, let's take a moment to look back at his journey, a short tribute from his team and loved ones." The lights dimmed, and that's when it happened. Instead of the corporate tribute video, the screen flickered. A black background faded into a photo of Ethan and me at our engagement party. The room applauded, assuming it was a romantic start. Then came the captions. "This is Ethan Clark, a man who builds glass towers while shattering the people closest to him." Whispers started. A few confused murmurs. The next clip showed a blurred video. Ethan in bed, shirtless. Then Tessa's voice giggling. Another still, a side-by-side of Ethan's message to me. "I can't wait to marry you." And another to Tessa on the same day. "Last night was unforgettable." Gasps echoed. One woman dropped her glass. The final clip was audio. Tessa's voice. She'll never find out. She trusts me more than anyone. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. Then the final slide came up. To Ethan and Tessa, may your lies be as exposed as your fake love. The screen went black. The lights came back on. Ethan stood frozen, jaw slack, sweat glistening on his temple. A man from the back shouted, "You're disgusting!" Someone else muttered, "He slept with her sister?" His boss stepped up and whispered something sharp in his ear. I saw Ethan shake his head, stammering, trying to explain, but the damage was done. Tessa wasn't even there. She'd gone into hiding after the blog post went viral. But her phone? Probably blowing up with notifications, tags, DMs, and sponsorship withdrawal emails. I didn't stick around for the aftermath. I'd made my statement. As I walked out, heels clicking against marble, a woman I didn't know touched my arm. "Whoever did that, thank you," she whispered. "We needed that reminder. Some people don't deserve silence." I smiled. Ethan once told me he wanted to be remembered. Tonight, he would be, just not for the reasons he planned. The morning after the gala, Ethan's name was everywhere, just not in the way he had dreamed. Fiancé exposes cheating architect in viral video. Family betrayal unfolds at live event. Instagram account reveals dirty secrets of social climber and influencer sister. And my favorite one, designing buildings, destroying trust, the fall of Ethan Clark. News outlets picked up the story like wildfire. What started as a local scandal became a trending topic. Reddit threads, TikTok reactions, YouTube breakdowns. People were obsessed. Everyone had an opinion. Some felt pity, most felt satisfaction. Betrayal makes for viral justice, and the internet doesn't forgive quickly. I wish I could say I felt joy in that moment. But what I felt was deeper. Something like peace. The man who made me question my worth, who looked me in the eyes and promised forever while sleeping with my sister, had finally been unmasked, publicly, and he couldn't control the narrative this time. Meanwhile, Tessa had gone underground. Her Instagram went private, but not before she lost nearly 100,000 followers. Her sponsorship deals were gone. Brands left comments disassociating with her, and every post she'd ever made with me became a battlefield of brutal comments. "You don't deserve a sister." "She trusted you. You're evil." "Hope it was worth it." She finally broke her silence with a Notes app apology on her story. A classic. "I'm human. I made a mistake. I never meant to hurt anyone." I laughed. A mistake is spilling coffee. She planned an affair for over a year. And then came the text. Her first attempt to speak to me directly since everything exploded. "Please, can we talk? I'm sorry. I lost everything. You were my only real friend." I stared at that message for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to say everything I'd held in for months. But then I remembered something powerful. Closure isn't always confrontation. Sometimes it's silence. So I blocked her. No words, no drama, just an empty space where she used to live. A week passed. Ethan emailed me. "I deserve what happened. I just wish we could talk. Maybe one day." I didn't reply. He never gave me the decency of honesty. I wasn't about to give him the mercy of a response. Instead, I poured myself into rebuilding. I moved cities. Took a job at a marketing agency where no one knew me as Ethan's fiancée or Tessa's sister. Just me, a woman with a past, but no baggage. And slowly, I began to smile again. Not because they were ruined, but because I wasn't. They tried to break me, but all they did was set me free. Healing doesn't arrive like a parade. It sneaks in like a whisper. In quiet mornings, in long walks, in the absence of chaos. The first month in my new city felt foreign. New apartment, new bed, new silence. For years, I had shared my space, my time, my soul. with people I thought were my forever. Now I was relearning how to sit with myself. And surprisingly, that silence became sacred. I started journaling. Nothing dramatic, just raw, real thoughts. Some entries were angry, some were full of grief. But slowly, my words began shifting from why me to what's next. I joined a local yoga studio. At first, I went just to distract myself. But over time, the practice started grounding me. There was something powerful about sweating out the pain, stretching into discomfort, and learning to breathe again, deeply, fully, without fear. I even started cooking again, something I'd stopped doing because it reminded me of Ethan. But in this new kitchen, it felt different, freer. No one to judge how much garlic I used or if I played music too loud while chopping onions. The freedom was intoxicating. People at work were kind. No one knew my story. They only saw a focused, creative woman who got things done. It was the clean slate I never thought I'd get. But healing doesn't mean forgetting. Triggers still existed. A song that played during our first date, the scent of Ethan's cologne on a stranger passing by, a commercial featuring a sisterhood theme that punched me in the chest. And yet, with every trigger came a new kind of strength. I wasn't avoiding the pain anymore. I was learning to walk through it. One night, a colleague invited me to a small gathering at her place. I hesitated, but said yes. It was awkward at first. I hadn't socialized properly since the betrayal. But people were warm, the vibe was relaxed, and I found myself laughing more than I expected. That's when I met someone. His name was Lucas. He was quiet, observant, with kind eyes that didn't scan me like a man measuring worth. He asked about my favorite books, not my relationship status. We talked for hours about nothing and everything, music, childhood memories, places we wanted to visit. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken while talking to someone new. I didn't tell him my story. Not yet. He didn't need to know I had fire running through my veins and scars under my skin. That would come later, when trust earned its place. For now, it was enough to just be. Some nights, I'd lie in bed and replay everything. The betrayal, the rage, the revenge. And I'd ask myself, did I go too far? But deep down, I knew the answer. I didn't destroy their lives. I just handed them the mirror. They broke themselves. And me? I chose not to stay shattered. So if you're watching this and you've been betrayed, let me tell you this. You don't need to scream to be powerful. You don't need closure to be free. Sometimes the quietest exit leaves the loudest echo. Just when I thought peace had finally taken root, the past came knocking, not with a whisper, but with a thunderclap. It started with a call from my mother. We hadn't spoken in over 2 months. She'd tried calling the week after the scandal broke, but I couldn't stomach hearing her voice, not knowing she always favored Tessa, even when we were kids. So I ignored it. I had no energy left to play the "you're both my daughters" card. But this time, she didn't call out of guilt. She called with a tremble in her voice. "Honey, I need to tell you something. Tessa's pregnant." My blood ran cold. Pregnant? I didn't even ask who the father was. The answer was obvious. Ethan. Of course it was Ethan. Because if betrayal had a name, it would wear his smile and smell like her perfume. "She's not doing well," Mom continued. "She's living at a friend's place. Her accounts are frozen. She has no income. No one will touch her after what happened." I didn't say a word. "She wants to talk to you," she added quietly. "She says it's important." I hung up without responding. But the silence after that call screamed louder than any argument we'd ever had. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head. Some cruel, some empathetic, all of them exhausting. Why would she want to speak now? What could she possibly say that hadn't already been exposed? I told myself I wouldn't do it, that I'd moved on, that nothing she could say would change anything. But curiosity is a wicked companion. 2 days later, I agreed to meet her. In public. Neutral ground. A cafe on the edge of town where no one knew either of us. She looked fragile. Not the Tessa I remembered, full of sparkle and spite. Her skin was pale, eyes sunken, and that usual fire in her expression was now replaced with shame. She was clearly in her second trimester. I sat across from her. No hug, no fake pleasantries. She opened with a whisper. I know you hate me, and I deserve it. I didn't deny it. But I didn't come here for forgiveness. I came to tell you something you deserve to know. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded letter. I found this in Mom's closet last week in a locked box. I took it hesitantly, unfolded the paper, and began reading. It wasn't just a letter. It was a DNA test. My heart pounded as my eyes scanned the results, and the truth unraveled like a cruel trick played by fate itself. Tessa and I weren't full sisters. We weren't even biological sisters. She was adopted, quietly, secretly, as a baby. A truth buried by my parents to protect her identity and avoid scandal in our small hometown. Tessa's voice broke through my daze. All my life, I felt like I was living in your shadow. Mom and Dad always favored you. I guess I knew deep down I wasn't really theirs. I didn't know how to deal with that. So I became selfish. I destroyed things to feel important. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't sleep with Ethan to hurt you. I did it because I hated being second best, and I wanted something you had, just once. My hands trembled. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a life I didn't even know was a lie. And for the first time since the entire mess began, I didn't know what to feel. The letter stayed in my lap long after Tessa left the cafe. I didn't finish my coffee. I couldn't even taste it anymore. I just sat there, eyes fixed on a DNA report that turned my entire childhood into a fiction. I had always believed Tessa and I were two sides of the same coin, born into the same chaos, raised with the same rules, held by the same parents. But now that bond was shattered, and suddenly the memories I once protected, birthday sleepovers, matching Halloween costumes, the day we both cried over our parents' divorce, all felt tainted. I wasn't just grieving her betrayal anymore. I was grieving the idea of her. The version I had loved like a sister, blindly, fiercely, fully. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching the letter, flipping it back and forth like the answers would somehow change. I wanted to call my mother and demand the truth. I wanted to scream at her for hiding this, for letting me believe something that never existed. But part of me already knew what she'd say. We did what we thought was best. And maybe they did. But in doing so, they raised a girl in a shadow she didn't understand, and raised me to believe I was safe inside a sisterhood that was never built on solid ground. The betrayal cut deeper now, because it wasn't just about Ethan. It was about every why I had never asked. Why Tessa always seemed to need more attention. Why she resented my wins. Why she clung to anyone who gave her validation, even if it meant stealing from her own family. Was it pain that made her do it? Or jealousy? Or a cocktail of both? And then came the hardest question of all. If she wasn't my real sister, did that make what she did worse or easier to forgive? There was no clean answer. Days passed. I distanced myself again. Told my mother I needed space. And I meant it. I kept the letter. Not to hold a grudge, but to remember that life isn't always what it seems. People carry secrets deeper than you realize, and sometimes the ones you love the most are battling storms you can't see. I didn't rush back into normal life. I slowed down. I took walks without music. I sat in bookstores and read poetry I never cared for before. I watched sunsets from my balcony with a glass of red wine and no phone in hand. Something in me was shifting. For the first time in months, my healing wasn't fueled by revenge, it was fueled by acceptance. Accepting that family can fail you. That truth doesn't always come wrapped in kindness, that some wounds will never fully close, but you can live around them, build new paths, find strength in the ruins. The world hadn't gone back to normal, but I was becoming something stronger than I had ever been before. I thought the storm had passed, that I had survived the worst of it, and the wreckage was finally behind me. But just when the waters began to calm, another wave hit. It was a Wednesday night. I had just gotten home from work, kicked off my heels, and poured a glass of water when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick it up. The voice on the other end was frantic. A man. Breathless. "Hi, sorry to call like this. You don't know me, but I'm a friend of Tessa's. You're her sister, right?" My heart dropped. I didn't answer, just gripped the phone tighter. "She's in the hospital. She collapsed in her apartment. They think it was stress related, maybe dehydration, but she was also having panic attacks. She's she's not doing well." I sat down slowly. Panic attacks? Stress? Hospital? The words buzzed around my head like static, but none of them landed. I didn't know how to feel. Tessa, the woman who ripped my heart out, was now lying in a hospital bed, her world crumbling around her. And someone had called me, thinking I could fix it? "She keeps asking for you," he added. "I think she just needs someone." I almost laughed. Needs someone? She needed someone when she was sneaking around with Ethan. She needed someone when she was smiling at my face and stabbing my back. But that thought didn't sit right, because the truth was, no one else was coming for her. Not her followers, not her fake friends, not even Ethan, who had apparently moved to Chicago and ghosted her after the fallout. I hung up without saying yes or no. The whole night, I wrestled with it. Part of me wanted to let her suffer, to let her sit in that sterile hospital room and feel the weight of her choices alone. But another part, the part that remembered late night chats and shared dreams and two little girls playing in their backyard, wouldn't let me sleep. So the next morning, I went. She looked smaller than I remembered. Pale. Her hair pulled back, face puffy from crying, wires attached to her wrist. No makeup, no filters, just raw human pain. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "You came," she whispered. I didn't say anything, just sat down on the plastic chair beside her. There was a long silence. "I deserve all of this," she said finally, eyes brimming. "I know that. I ruined everything. I hurt you in ways I can't ever fix. And now, I'm scared. I don't even know how to be a mom." That last word struck like lightning. Mom. She was still carrying Ethan's child. A child born from betrayal, but innocent. Unasked for, undeserving of the chaos it was being born into. I looked at her, and for a moment, she wasn't my enemy. She was a scared, broken girl who had made terrible choices and now had to live with them. Every day, every night, and for the rest of her life. And despite everything, I felt something unexpected. Pity, not forgiveness, not absolution, but a human connection, a flicker of grace. "You'll figure it out," I said softly. "But don't expect me to hold your hand through it." She nodded, eyes filling with tears. "I just didn't want to leave this world without saying sorry." Properly. I stood up, adjusted my coat. "You still have a world to live in, Tessa. Make sure you don't waste the second chance." And then I walked out, not because I was done, but because I was finally free. Days passed after that hospital visit, but something in me shifted. It wasn't forgiveness. No, that wasn't a word I was ready to entertain. But it was release. The kind that doesn't come from payback or headlines. The kind that comes from knowing you've survived and no longer need to carry the weight of someone else's guilt to define your future. Tessa didn't text after that, and I didn't expect her to. We had said what needed to be said. We had acknowledged the ashes, and now it was up to both of us to decide what, if anything, we'd rebuild. Separately, quietly. I focused on myself. I started working on a side project, a small blog where women could anonymously share stories of betrayal, heartbreak, family scars, and healing. I called it Scarlet Truths. At first, it was just a place for me to vent. But as word spread, more stories came in. Real voices, real pain, real resilience. It felt like I was channeling my wounds into something meaningful, something that gave others a place to be heard without judgment. And then one day, out of the blue, my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't expected to see again. Ethan. I stared at the screen for a long time before picking up. His voice was quieter than I remembered. Hey, I know you don't owe me anything, but I heard what happened to Tessa. I wanted to know if she's okay. I almost laughed. Now you care? He sighed. I know I have no right to ask. I've lost everything. The job, the respect, my friends. I left Chicago. I'm trying to start over and you should try harder, I cut in coldly. Because starting over doesn't mean crawling back to the scene of your crimes. There was silence on the other end. I'm not crawling, he said finally. I just wanted to apologize. For everything. You didn't deserve what I did. What we did. No, I didn't. I've been sober for 3 months, he added. Therapy, too. I blinked. That surprised me. Ethan never believed in therapy. He used to call it emotional babysitting. Maybe life humbled him more than I thought. I'm not looking for forgiveness, he said. Just, maybe one day we can talk. As two people who survived something ugly. I didn't respond. I let the silence say what words couldn't. Eventually, he hung up. That night, I wrote about it on Scarlet Truths, not using his name, not even mine. Just a post titled, What Happens When Your Monsters Come Back Changed? And the comments poured in. If he's changed, let him prove it to the universe, not to you. Forgiveness isn't a door. It's a slow, rusted gate. You decide when it opens. Healing doesn't mean inviting the past to dinner. Sometimes it just means not letting it eat you alive. I reread those words again and again. They felt like the closure I didn't know I needed. That weekend, I was invited to speak at a local women's community center. Someone had read my blog and wanted me to talk about betrayal, resilience, and starting again. I hesitated at first, but said yes. As I stood at that podium, looking into the faces of strangers turned sisters in pain, I realized something powerful. Standing in front of a room full of strangers, I told the most personal story of my life. Not as a victim, not as a woman scorned, but as someone who had clawed her way through betrayal and come out standing. There was no dramatic flair, no tears for sympathy, just truth. Raw, quiet truth. After the session, women lined up to speak with me. Some hugged me, some cried. Others simply said, "Thank you. I needed to hear that." It was healing in a way revenge could never be. It was deeper, richer. And yet, a part of me still felt fragile. Like trust was a muscle I hadn't used in years, and now I was being asked to lift something heavy. That muscle was tested a week later, when I saw Lucas again. The same Lucas from that work party. We'd crossed paths a few times since then. Polite, casual, always lighthearted. But now he asked if I wanted to grab coffee after work. Just coffee, no pressure. I hesitated, but something inside me whispered, why not? So we met at a cozy little shop on the corner, the kind with real books on the walls and soft jazz playing in the background. He ordered chamomile tea. I got my usual black coffee, extra hot. We didn't talk about the past. He didn't pry. He just asked me what made me start a blog, what my favorite comfort movie was, and whether I preferred city sunsets or countryside silence. It was easy, too easy, and that terrified me. At one point, I caught myself smiling, a real one, and immediately felt guilty. Like happiness was a betrayal of my pain. Like if I moved on, I'd somehow be letting Tessa and Ethan off the hook. But Lucas didn't try to fix me. He just saw me. And there's a difference. As we walked out, he paused. "You ever think maybe some people aren't meant to save us?" he said. "Just stand beside us while we figure out how to save ourselves?" I looked at him. "Maybe," I said softly. "But standing beside someone is a risk, too." He smiled. "I'm not here to rush you, just walk with you." Something about that stuck. Because for the first time, a man wasn't trying to invade my healing. He was just offering to witness it. We began meeting once a week. No labels, no expectations, just conversation. Trust, rebuilt one sentence at a time. Meanwhile, Scarlet Truths continued to grow. I started receiving messages from women around the country, some sharing their own stories, others simply saying, "You gave me strength." I never expected my deepest wound to become a bridge for others. But maybe that's what life does. Breaks us, not to end us, but to transform us. And somewhere in that slow, imperfect rebuilding, I started dreaming again. Not of revenge, not of justice, but of peace. A life where I wasn't defined by what I had lost, but by what I had become. Not the woman whose fiancé slept with her sister. Not the one who got her revenge. Just me. Honest. Whole. Unapologetically rising. 5 years had passed since the night I dropped that cake and everything shattered with it. Life had changed in ways I couldn't have imagined then. In ways I wouldn't have imagined. The blog, Scarlet Truths, had grown into something much larger than me. It had turned into a podcast, then a speaking series, and finally, a book deal. Not bad for someone once left on her birthday by the two people she loved most. Lucas and I had grown together slowly, like vines finding the sunlight. No grand gestures, no rushing. Just two people who'd seen enough darkness to value the quiet in each other. We'd moved in together a year ago. No engagement yet. And strangely, I was okay with that. I had learned not to need a ring to validate my worth. One crisp autumn morning, as I sipped my coffee by the window, a thick, slightly crumpled envelope arrived at my doorstep. No return address. But the handwriting on the front made my breath hitch. To the woman who survived us all. Inside was a letter, not from Tessa, from her child. My hand shook as I unfolded it. "Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm 15. My mom's name was Tessa. She told me about you. Everything. She said you were strong and brave and that I should grow up to be like you. She told me she made terrible choices, but that you were the only person who ever showed her the truth. Not with hate, but with strength." I blinked, already choking up. "She passed away last year. Cancer. She told me before she went that she didn't deserve your forgiveness, but she hoped someday I might reach out and say thank you. For showing her what accountability looks like. For walking away without destroying her." My heart twisted. "I don't know what our relationship should be. I don't expect anything from you. But I wanted you to know that my mother tried, even if it was too late. And that you changed her. Maybe you saved her. Even when she didn't deserve it." There was a photo tucked inside. Tessa, pale but smiling, holding a little girl with wild curly hair and eyes that looked like hers, but softer. The girl's eyes also looked like mine. I sat there for hours, letter pressed to my chest, tears sliding silently down my cheeks. Forgiveness had always felt like something I had to give or deny, but now It felt like something that had been growing quietly all along, in the way I had moved forward, in the strength I gave to others, in the love I learned to receive again. I wrote back to Olivia, "You don't owe me anything, but if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Not because of your mother, not because of the past, but because we are the future, and it deserves better than silence." I dropped the envelope in the mailbox the next day, knowing that some stories don't end with revenge, they end with grace. Life has a funny way of coming full circle, not with thunder or applause, but with quiet moments that whisper, "You made it." It had been 6 years since that betrayal turned my world inside out. 6 years since I walked in with a birthday cake and walked out with my soul in pieces. And yet here I was, not broken, not bitter, just whole. I never imagined the girl who once cried herself to sleep on the bathroom floor would someday sit on a stage in front of hundreds, holding a microphone with steady hands and eyes full of clarity. But there I was, keynote speaker at a national women's conference, invited not because of the scandal, but because of the strength that came after. Behind the curtain, before I went on, I glanced at my phone. A new message from Olivia. "I got into NYU, writing and journalism. Thank you for inspiring me." I smiled. The same girl born of betrayal, now writing her own story. When they called my name, I stepped onto that stage, the spotlight warm on my skin. I looked out at the crowd, faces young and old, some smiling, some already teary-eyed, and I took a deep breath. "This isn't a story about revenge," I began. "This is a story about remembering who you are when the people you trusted forget who they were." The room stilled. I was betrayed, not by strangers, by blood, by love, by people who promised me forever and handed me fragments. And for a long time, I thought the only way to heal was to make them hurt the way I did. I paused. But revenge, it doesn't rebuild you. It just delays the real work. The messy, honest, beautiful process of standing back up, looking at your own reflection and saying, "I am still here, and I am still enough." A few people nodded. Others wiped their eyes. I didn't find peace in destroying them. I found peace in choosing myself, in choosing to grow, to rise, to love again, not because they were worth forgiving, but because I was worth freeing. The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was long, and it wasn't for revenge. It was for rebirth. After the event, I stepped outside into the golden hour. Lucas waited for me with that soft, knowing smile, the one that never asked too many questions, only offered space. As we walked toward the car, he laced his fingers with mine and asked, "Do you ever wish it had never happened?" I thought for a moment, then shook my head gently. If it hadn't, I might have never found myself. Because the truth is, pain doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it introduces you to the version of you that you were always meant to become. And if you're listening to this, or watching this, or reading these words right now, this is for you. You are not what they did to you. You are what you choose to become after. You don't need revenge to rise. You just need the courage to begin again.